Okay, here's the challenge. You see this little tiny spring right here? That attaches to this little ratcheting pawl and has to go inside here and attach to that little spot right there. So my challenge is going to be how to get it in there. So what I'm going to mount this in a vise so that it'll hold still. And I've got a couple ideas. One idea is going to be to have the spring in there and try to use a little tiny piece of wire to just grab a hold of it, because this round end here, you see that? That round end there has to go over this notch. Well, if autofocus was as good as it says it could be. And the other end of that stays on this piece here. So I'm going to mount it on the vise. So that I can use both hands to work on this. Great little vise here. It's got rubbery jaws on it, so it can squeeze on this fitting here the speedometer cable attachment point without doing any damage. And then it's, you know, got a lot of adjustments in terms of, you know, where and how you can position it. Plus it does have an actual vacuum base. If this platform here were smooth enough, I could put it on there and I could use the vacuum setting for it. But I think I'm zoomed in as much as I can here so that we can try to see exactly what's going on when I try to put this in. Get in position here. You can really see what's going on. Okay, I think that's fairly good. Okay, you see this little nub right here? That spring has to go over that nub, and that will help keep the ratcheting pawl in place. So, as I said, a couple of plans for how I could do it. One is going to be to use a tiny piece of wire to just try to grab it and pull it like a little pick. And the other is, if that doesn't work, maybe put a piece of thread through it and kind of pull the loop of thread over the mechanism, or over the nub, and see if that makes it go. So this piece here goes in like this, and as you can see how it meshes with this little notch here, and each time that gear goes around, it will move it one time. So the question would be then, well, what about calibration? I mean, we want to make sure that this is properly calibrated. Well, there's two things when you're looking at a speedometer that you have to think about for calibration. One is the calibration of the distance traveled, and the other would be the calibration of the speedometer. And they're somewhat related, but also not related. The calibration of the odometer is much more related to actual physical things. You've got the diameter of the wheel, the tire. You've got the gear ratio in the rear axle. You've got the gear in the transmission that spins the speedometer cable. So all of that is calculated, and that's, you know, simple arithmetic, mathematics. That'll get you to how many revolutions of your speedometer cable equals a particular distance traveled. And because these are gears, this is a 20-tooth gear here, the new gear that I got, which by the way came from a guy in Poland who apparently makes things. He had it listed as a 20-tooth gear from I think he said from a Cobra with a Smith's gauge in it, but I said that's Smith's gauge, 20-tooth odometer. It ought to work, and 20 teeth is what this gear here has. So 20 teeth should be properly calibrated. It's, you know, as long, you know, because 20 teeth is going to go around a predictable number of times, which is going to increment the odometer a predictable number of times, and therefore that will keep us calibrated in that. The speedometer calibration, we can talk about that later. There's a few other characteristics that you have to think about when you talk about speedometer calibration. But let's get this locking spring on here so that our mechanism, that our little catch or our little ratcheting piece doesn't run away from us. So that goes on like this, and we should be able to just press down on it and make it slide. And my thumb is making the autofocus. Okay. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn the autofocus off. Let's see if that will. All right, so that should just keep focused where it is now. Let's try this again. Maybe not. Tricky. Okay, where did it go? All right, wasn't easy, but a little persuasion, and now I have the piece, the locking mechanism on over the ratchet, so that won't come off. Now, as I said, for the tricky part, the spring. Okay, so here's the challenge as we're looking at. You know, we've got this little tiny spring, and we've got to get it attached to this point right here and this point right here. So, thinking of different ways to do it. So, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to put a piece of thread, where are we? Okay, take a piece of thread and put it down the center of the spring. And that's going to allow me to keep track of it, and then also it's going to be looped through this back loop on the back, and I should be able to pull that over the nub. So that's my plan. Okay. So we've got our piece of thread that can lead the spring in where it needs to go after it's been hooked onto this ratcheting pawl. Now that's the tricky part, of course, now is to get that, because I need to stop bumping the camera. Of course, my eyesight is not as good as it used to be. Not that it ever was really great. But let's see if I can get this guy in position. To slip over where it needs to go. Of course, I'm trying not to do anything that would put any undue stress on the little spring. Look at that. Holy crap, look at that. Can you see that? Does the focus really get in there to show that I actually do have it on the thing where it needs to go. So now I need to be able to pull it so that I can pull it onto that little nub on the unit there. So let me try to reposition things. It feels like I'm doing laparoscopic surgery or something, because I'm doing this looking through the lens on the camera and not looking at it, but I think I got it. I think I got it. And see if I can pull the thread out now. But I believe I've done it. Just get the end of this thread here. Oh, oh shit. Well, that's not good. Okay. Excuse the expletive there. But I pulled it, and the spring looks like it came off of the ratcheting pawl, which tells me that I'm on the right track. I've got the right technique here. I just pulled a little too hard, I think, when I pulled on the thread, and it took it off the ratcheting pawl. So I'm going to try it again. I know I've got the right technique here. It's just a question of perfecting the thing. So, okay, so boy, it took a bit of effort there to get the spring in place, but I have it in place now. You can't really see it in this view very well, but trust me, it's in place. It took me several tries to get it. I thought I had it on the first time, and then it popped off. And then it took me multiple attempts and a few expletives, I'm not gonna lie, before I actually got it on. But I'm gonna hook it up to the speedometer cable and the drill motor, and we'll watch it work. So. All right, here she goes. Pay attention to the actual distance traveled odometer. Trip odometer is working. We've got 56759 right now. Let's see if it'll go to 60. Look at that, look at that. Woo! All right, so it's fixed. I'll show you the mechanism working now. You can see it on this unit. This side over here, this is the trip odometer side, or this is the actual odometer side. See, it's moving. Moving that little gear, just one little ooch every time the speedometer goes around 20 times. And you see there's the drive gear for the trip odometer. This is the drive gear for the regular odometer. But because they're both 20 teeth, they should be perfectly in unison. And here it is back in the case. $61. $62. All right, so I hope you liked it. If you got any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them. Thanks.